Have you ever had a moment where you swear reality just glitched? Like maybe you should have been dead, but here you are, still kicking? Welcome back to Don't Quote Me, It's Probably Nothing, the podcast where we dive into the weirdest stories that make you question reality and maybe your own sanity. I'm your host, Kelly, or Kelly, your host. I don't know which one sounds better. I don't even know if I like it. I don't even know if I like saying that. Anyway, buckle up because today do you hear the mosquitoes? I mean, not the mosquitoes. Do you hear the locusts? I have my windows open because it's literally so nice outside right now. But anyway, today we're diving headfirst into the mind-bending world of quantum immortality and those freaky near-death glitches. Those strange, unexplained moments when reality seems to skip frames, time stretches, and consciousness keeps bouncing back like the ultimate video game respawn. Okay, if I sound different, it's because I just finally set up my microphone so that I don't have to hold it anymore. Also, every time I laugh like that, I automatically think of the dude with the small hand in Scary Movie during the dinner scene, when he was like, I know what you'd like. How about a leg? How about two? I cracked myself up. Also, I'm hoping by October for Spooky Month that I will have this all on video so that I can also post it to YouTube. But, I mean, it's on YouTube now. It's just me talking, though, which is weird. And also, thank you for the well wishes last week when I was sick. It was really nice of you to say to me. So thanks. But anyway, back to the podcast. So we're talking science, philosophy, spooky stories, and some of the craziest ideas about what happens when life and death start to blur. And maybe, just maybe, why you might never truly die. But don't quote me. It's probably nothing. All right, let's dive into this mind bender called quantum immortality, which honestly sounds like the ultimate cheat code for life. Like, who wouldn't want to never die? I probably wouldn't want to live forever. I mean, I have some people I want to see on the other side. Quantum immortality is this wild idea that comes from the world of quantum mechanics, which is the branch of physics that basically is a playground for the weirdest, most confusing concepts out there. We're talking particles that exist in multiple states at once, cats that are both alive and dead. Looking at you, Schrodinger? I don't know. Probably pronounced that wrong. Anyway, and universes that branch off like a giant cosmic choose your own adventure. Side note, I also used to love Goosebumps books where you choose what happens next. I just felt like sharing that. Okay, some video that I found on YouTube says that you pronounce it Schrodinger. I am just so stupid right now. But because I'm American, Schrodinger is probably the right way to pronounce it. So, Schrodinger's cat is a thought experiment proposed by physicist Erwin Schrödinger in 1935 to illustrate the paradoxes of quantum mechanics. So, in this experiment, a cat is placed in a sealed box with a radioactive atom, a Geiger counter, and a vial of poison. If the atom decays, the Geiger counter triggers the release of the poison, resulting in the cat's death. According to quantum mechanics, until the box is opened and observed, the cat is considered to be both alive and dead simultaneously, highlighting the counterintuitive nature of quantum superposition. This thought experiment critiques the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics, which basically is that a system exists in all possible states until it is observed. So the gist is that quantum immortality suggests that your consciousness never actually dies. Instead, every time there's a possible outcome where you could survive something fatal, you continue in that reality. It's like your brain is the ultimate multiverse hopper, always just jumping around the universe where you kind of just stick around. Imagine you're in a life or death scenario. Say a weird sci-fi laser battle or just crossing a busy street because they're, the same. So in some universes, well, you don't make it, but in the one where you're experiencing whatever is going on, you do make it. So from your perspective, you're effectively immortal, hopping from one surviving reality to the next without ever experiencing death. This theory builds on the many worlds interpretation, which was proposed by physicist Hugh Everett back in the 1950s. Instead of one universe where things happen, there's a massive tree of universes splitting off at every possible event. I'm really sorry about this microphone, guys. I can't seem to get it to sound right. I think I fixed it now. So if I was like really low just a few minutes ago, my bad. I don't know what I'm doing most of the time. But anyway, which also I realized that I say but anyway and also literally all the time. Also, I think I say which a lot too. And like, and I'm sorry. Now, before you start feeling invincible, remember that this is a theory, a pretty mind-bending one at that. Plus, it raises a whole lot of questions about identity, reality, and what it means to be you. So, yeah, quantum immortality is basically the cosmic get-out-of-death-free card, but that only works if you're cool with existing across infinite versions of yourself in a never-ending multiverse. So let's talk about those how are you still alive moments. You know, the kind of stories where physics, logic, and common sense all collectively throw their hands in the air and say, nope, I quit. The interwebs, of course, just eats this stuff up. So on Reddit, under Glitch in the Matrix, people post stories about moments when they swear reality just like glitched. For example, one guy said he fell off a roof, blacked out midair, and then woke up standing in his yard completely unharmed, like the fall never happened. Another person claimed they were in a terrible highway pileup, watched the car in front of them slam on brakes, like full cinematic slow-mo, this is it vibes, and then boom, suddenly they were 10 miles down the road, completely fine, car untouched. Like reality just hit the skip button. Someone else swore that they choked on food, fully blacked out, felt themselves leave their body, and then suddenly snapped back into life mid-bite like nothing happened. They literally said it felt like the universe hit Control Z on their death. Can you imagine just like being in the middle of choking and then feel like you're leaving your body and then just go right back into your body again? Like, I don't know. If I'm going to respawn, I think I want a different body. Definitely one that's a little bit taller, I think. I'm pretty short. It's tough to reach things in my kitchen and in the pantry and my closet and stuff like that. I always have to call my daughter in. And then like when my kids are being buttholes and I'm yelling at them, it's like they don't take me seriously because I literally have to look up at them to yell at them because I'm so short. And yeah, so I usually just grab my yelling stool and then like step on a stool so I can yell down at them because I'm the parent. Like, you know how your mom or dad may have like gone into their drawer to grab the wooden spoon? Like mine is I go in the closet to grab the stool. When I grab that stool, they know I mean business. But anyway, the stories like the few that I just mentioned are why people start connecting the dots with quantum immortality. And also, don't worry, I'll be reading the Reddit stories later. But this idea is like maybe in this version of reality, you survived because somewhere in another timeline you didn't. But like your consciousness, it only keeps going in the timeline where you live, which means theoretically, you'll never actually experience your own death, which is creepy and comforting all at once. But honestly, have you ever had that moment where you were like, wait, I should be dead right now? Like, even if it's small, like when you choke on your own spit because apparently breathing and drinking is too complicated for our advanced human bodies. That's the glitchy little cousin of quantum immortality. Whether it's Reddit threads, TikTok storytellers, or I was about to say storytellers. Or your uncle at Thanksgiving telling the time he fell off a ladder and only sprained his wrist, these stories are everywhere. And they all feed into one big unsettling possibility that maybe death isn't the end. Maybe it's just a loading screen. Hollywood loves to get weird with this idea of never really dying and just shifting timelines. And honestly, who can even blame them? Quantum immortality is basically the universe's version of plot armor. Like, oh, you thought the main character died? Nah, they just slipped into another reality. Roll credits. Like that one time, you know, the whole Jon Snow being dead thing. I was so late to the Game of Thrones bandwagon, and I was considering stopping watching it when Jon Snow died because I was so upset because I just really liked him as a character. And also, like, how the hell are they going to kill Ed within the first couple episodes? Like, he was one of my favorite characters so quick. And they were just like, see you later. Your head's now on a stake because screw you, I guess. And not Ed. I meant to say Ned. I only took 2 hits of my bowl. I don't understand what's wrong with me right now. I want you to listen to my cat purring. Hold on. Isn't that so nice? This is Cartman. He was hiding under my chair. I didn't know he was there. I had to smother him with kisses. Okay, I think I can finally finish this episode without getting sidetracked. But let's start with The Matrix, because obviously. So everyone remembers Neo dodging bullets in slow motion, but at its core, that movie is all about bending reality. And if you think about it, Neo dying and then coming back stronger is like the ultimate quantum immortality flex. He didn't really die, he just glitched into the timeline where he didn't. Then there's Final Destination, aka the franchise that ruined tanning beds, highways, and even dental cleanings for everyone in the early 2000s. That, not for me though, the thing that wrecked me was the tea kettle exploding and then the chick just getting stabbed in the chest by a knife. That one always bothered me. And now that I said that, I don't really think it was a tea kettle. I think it was the popcorn. Like the poppy popcorn that you cook on the stove. But anyway, I feel like the Final Destination movies basically say, sure, you cheated death this one time, but death is petty and has a to-do list, which kind of feels like the opposite of quantum immortality. Like in one version of reality, you survive the accident, but in this movie universe, death is going to make sure that ladder will fall on your head next week. Or take Doctor Strange in the Marvel Universe. He literally uses the time stone to keep dying and resetting until he finds the one scenario where he lives. And that's not just quantum immortality. That's quantum immortality with a subscription upgrade. And I'm so sorry. That was dumb. That was so dumb. But it's not just action or sci-fi, because even Rick and Morty ran with this idea in a super twisted way. So remember the episode where Rick casually replaces himself and Morty with versions from a reality where they just died and then they buried their own bodies in the backyard? Dark. Messed up. But also a hilarious, yep, this is quantum immortality, but in cartoon form. Once you know this concept, you start seeing it everywhere. Time travel movies, multiverse movies, even cheesy soap operas when someone comes back from the dead after falling off a cliff or something. It's oh, surprise! They didn't actually die. They were just in another timeline where they somehow also got plastic surgery and a new haircut. But here's the thing though. Pop culture makes quantum immortality look glamorous. But in reality, if this theory is true, it's probably way less Hollywood and way more awkward. So whether it's Neo dodging bullets, Death plotting new creative ways to off you in Final Destination, or Rick literally grave digging for his new self, pop culture has had a field day with this concept. Are these just stories, or is someone trying to prepare us? Okay, so let's nerd out for a second, but in a fun way, and talk about that many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. Oh my gosh. My neighbor's garage is so squeaky. I can't talk too loud because my windows are open and he's standing in his mailbox. But he's just the cutest little old man. And he always wears these shirts that say, I love Jesus. And he's just adorable. Okay, so with the many worlds version of, the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, is basically just a fancy way of saying every time something could go one way or another, the universe basically copies and pastes itself. One version does this, one does that. So let's say you're walking down the stairs holding a giant iced coffee like the caffeinated queen or king that you are. And in one reality, you trip, coffee everywhere, total embarrassment. Your cat is judging you like mine is right now. And in another, you somehow do this Olympic level recovery move, keep the coffee upright, and just strut away. Both versions exist, but you, or your consciousness, only experiences the one where you totally didn't eat it. Because if you did, well, you wouldn't be here laughing about it right now, I guess. I don't know. Don't know where I was going with that. Scientists are split. So some say, yeah, the math kind of works. This could be a thing. And others are like, stop. This is science fan fiction written by people who think Rick and Morty is a documentary. And the trippy part is, you can't prove it wrong. Because in your experience, you always survive. From your perspective, you're immortal. Meanwhile, in someone else's timeline, maybe you spilled the coffee, broke your neck, and now you haunt Dunkin' Donuts. But for you, you just keep vibing. So now that we've wrapped our brains around quantum spaghetti, let's talk about the part that really freaks people out. The stories. Because it's one thing to say, oh yeah, science says infinite timelines, blah, blah, blah. But it's another thing when actual people are like, I think I just jumped realities and no one told me. Also, when I just said spaghetti, it reminded me of like little kids sometimes say biscotti instead of spaghetti. And then my little niece, Aurora, when my dad and stepmom, their cat, is named Sebastian. And when she says Sebastian, it's the cutest thing ever. She goes, Bisbastian. Hi, Bisbastian. This one's from Cool District 4369, and it's titled, I Think I Jumped Realities. I'm a pretty open-minded person. I believe in ghosts, aliens, some mythical creatures, etc. So parallel universes are something that I believe are possible. However, I never dabbled in learning about them in depth as much as paranormal phenomena. I can't say I'm as big as a believer in parallel universe or time jumping because I've never experienced it firsthand. I have more encounters with paranormal phenomena and have only ever heard or read stories about someone waking up in a parallel universe or time jumping, but have never experienced it myself. That is until recently. I took a nap on my couch and quickly fell into a deep sleep. One of those sleeps that someone really has to shake you to get you awake. I'm usually a light sleeper, so this type of deep sleep already felt off to me. I was unconscious, yet still able to feel my body, which was extremely heavy and felt like I was buried under 10 feet of sand. I woke up and found myself still on the couch and in my apartment, but it was slightly different. Such as, the kitchen was bigger, there were 3 bedrooms. I lived in a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, and my porch was slightly larger. The biggest difference was the fact that my apartment was facing a parking lot as to where my actual apartment is faced towards a woodsy area. Something else that kind of unnerved me was the fact that I knew I wasn't in my hometown, which is the Midwest. I somehow knew that I was somewhere south, possibly Georgia. I got up from the couch and felt this weird hazy feeling around my head. The best way I can describe it is being drunk and high at the same time. It's what I imagine Spider-Man's spidey senses feel like. As I walked around, I became more and more aware that I was somewhere I wasn't supposed to be. I looked out my living room window and saw someone grilling. I also heard my father's voice. I went outside and saw my dad talking to another man, who I had somehow known was my neighbor, grilling steaks. I walked up to them and became even more unnerved because I had the sudden realization that they did not know I wasn't supposed to be there. My dad turned to me and said something that I couldn't be bothered to listen to because all I could think about was the fact that he did not know that I was not his daughter. I'm trying to make sense of what's going on. The neighbor asks us if we wanted to try his latest batch. I didn't know what he was talking about, but again, I just had the knowledge that he grew his own produce. He went inside his apartment and came back out with a jar of what appeared to be homemade pickles. He handed one to both me and my dad, and we tried them. Now, funny enough, this is the part that really let me know that I wasn't where I was supposed to be. In my reality, I absolutely hate pickles. So much so that since I was a kid, if I tasted anything like pickles, I would refuse to eat whatever was in front of me. Even if a pickle was on a burger for 2 seconds, I would take a bite, taste nothing but pickles, and would lose my appetite immediately. So when I ate these pickles and loved them, that's when I knew I had definitely traveled to a place I didn't belong. I mean, I don't know why that made me chuckle, but I love pickles. Pickle, like everything, is delicious. But anyway. After realizing this, I quickly excused myself and went back inside to try to figure out how to get back to my reality. The only thing I could think of was to try to go back to sleep and concentrate on things that I would recognize in my reality, such as how my apartment was supposed to look, my 2 cats, my husband, etc. I was able to drift back to sleep, and as soon as I did, I immediately jolted back and woke up in my reality. And when I say jolted, it felt as if I was shocked back to life. My whole body moved so suddenly that I scared my cat across the room. Now, like I said, I usually only hear about traveling to parallel universes or temporarily jumping timelines and or realities, and I'm not opposed to the possibility of those events happening. I'm not sure if that's what I did, but I can't shake the feeling of just how unsettling it is to be in an environment that you so clearly know doesn't fit what you understand, and being around others that don't realize the same thing. Okay, this next one is from Trade Dependent 142. It says, as a young child, I flew outside my body and would fly in figure eights above my parents watching TV. I would tell my mother what they talked about the next day. One night I had a different experience, more like a near-death experience. After I came back to my house, I saw my family was not in the house, so I flew outside and saw my parents and older brother were outside because some of our horses were out. I flew behind the barn and saw the horse had its legs stuck in a fence. I went out to the front of the barn telling my mother she needed to get back there, but she couldn't hear me. That's when I realized she didn't even know I was there. I flew back into my house, went into my body, and laid down into myself and forced myself to wake up immediately, which I did. I ran to the door and couldn't turn the knob because I was locked in the house. My mother had locked me in because I was young and didn't want me to get run over by upset horses running loose. I screamed and pounded on the door until she heard me. She unlocked the door and was so mad I was screaming when they had such a terrible incident on the farm. I told her what happened and she said it was a dream. I then asked about the horse behind the barn with its legs stuck in the wire fence, and she was horrified. I told her everything they said and all kinds of details I could not have known locked in the house after dark. She was terrified and said not to talk about it again. I was out of my body and saw things far disconnected from my physical self. It happened. I can't explain it. I don't know how that was like a near-death experience, but okay. One of the comments under this thread said to check out the Celtic mythology about Summerland, so let's do that. Okay, so in ancient Celtic belief, especially among the Druids, which, okay, side note, because this is how my brain is, so just deal with it, I guess. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of Akashic Records or anything like that, but Akashic Records are like a symbolic or intuitive reading based on your current life path. And there's another one like Ayurvedic records, and they're insights based on dosha types like Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, and like lifestyle alignment, which for that one, I gave like my body type and other stuff. And it was wild that it was accurate with like everything about me and how my brain works. But anyway, with the Akashic Records, and the whole reason I got sidetracked into telling you this is that in my past life, apparently, I'm just kidding. Apparently, I was born female in the early 1400s, somewhere along like the northern edge of modern day France or Belgium. And like this part of my soul is like, it's cloaked in candlelight and the smell of old paper, which, sorry, a car just drove by, but it would totally explain why I absolutely love the smell of old paper. Like, it's hard to explain, but when I smell old books, like, it brings me so much peace and comfort. But anyway, apparently I was like some type of scribe, like working in like a monastery or a private library, and I would translate religious texts, which would also explain why all throughout school, religion was like my favorite subject next to history. But it said that I wasn't just copying scriptures, I was like smuggling hidden knowledge into the margins, like forbidden philosophies, wisdom, herbal remedies, like apparently crude jokes when I was bored, which is so on brand. But it also said that that particular timeline left me with like a deep mistrust of censorship or controlling systems, and a soul level urge to tell stories that matter, and like a sharp wit with unfiltered commentary because I was also funny in the 1700s, and a slight fear of exposure because in that life I was almost discovered and had to flee. And then it says that my soul remembers being punished for like knowing too much, but it also remembers the fire of like rebellion that felt like truth itself. Sorry, I rambled on and on, but what I wanted to say, like when I mentioned the Druids before, was that according to the Akashic Records, one of my past lives was during the Celtic period in what is now Ireland or Northern Wales, and I was a Druid priestess. And it said, I'll just read it. Okay. It says, you were a female druid, which was rare, but you were highly respected. A healer and interpreter of omens, especially using nature. Trees, birds, smoke, stone circles, etc. The keeper of oral traditions, passing knowledge through stories, symbols, and ceremonial music. You had vivid dreams even then, and your intuitive abilities were well known. People came to you with questions about love, death, crops, childbirth, spiritual guidance, and you always knew what to say. Not from logic, but from direct knowing. This life left you with a connection to trees, herbs, storms, and moonlight. Nature speaks to you in ways others don't understand. A love of storytelling and wordplay because you once used your voice to pass down ancient truths, and a deep, sacred, almost spiritual reverence for laughter because even back then you used wit to break tension and heal hearts. Other past lives that come through strongly for you are the scribe who smuggled secrets, which I just mentioned that one, the lighthouse keeper, which was in the mid-1800s, coastal New England. You lived a quiet life alone or nearly alone near the sea. Your soul loved the solitude. You wrote letters you never sent, drank tea by candlelight, and always had a cat. Well, now I have 7 cats. The I love people, but please leave me alone feeling stems from here, which, yeah, I do felt. And the other one was like the midwife humorist in medieval Italy. And it says that I delivered babies and cracked dark jokes about death and sex and life to the mothers while doing it. I was well loved and a little feared and definitely whispered about. But what's wild is that like, okay, so you know how they say that if you feel particularly drawn to like a certain, my dog is barking. Oh, Clarabelle, she's so cute. Sorry for the dog barks. I was so engrossed into like what I'm telling you that I didn't even notice. I'm not even going to edit it out either. But anyway, if you feel particularly drawn to a certain period of time, supposedly you had a past life during that time. And I feel that because coastal New England like calls to me, even though I've never even visited there before. And like the ocean is a place where as soon as I step into the water, I feel like I'm just like reconnected with the earth. And like I love nature, and the tree thing, like this is going to sound so weird, but like I can see when trees are sad or happy. So like anyone else, please? So I'm not like super duper weird. Also, I do have psychic abilities, but I don't really share that with anyone, even though I kind of just shared that with the world. But those stories are for another time, like maybe during spooky season. But anyway, back to the Celtic mythology. So in ancient Celtic belief, especially, I'm sorry for that, telling you guys all that, but I thought it was so interesting. And then I said druids, and then my mind went to that. But yeah. Anyway, in ancient Celtic belief, especially among the Druids, death wasn't seen as the end. Instead, it was more like a transition. Think less game over and more loading. They believed in something called the Summerland, sometimes referred to as the Otherworld, which was basically the Celtic afterlife. But it's not all fire and brimstone like some later religions describe. It was more like a paradise. Imagine endless green fields, crystal waters, perfect weather, and a place where your soul could rest, reflect, and prepare for what came next. So they basically believed that the soul was immortal, that death was just moving through a doorway into another existence. The Summerland was like a pit stop, like a place to chill before reincarnating into another life. So basically, they already had their own version of quantum immortality before physics gave it a name. Like you never really die, you just keep going in another form, another body, another timeline. I don't know why that made me chuckle. But some druids even taught that memory and wisdom carried over, which is why some kids are said to be old souls. My favorite part about this is that the Summerland wasn't scary, it was peaceful. Like dying wasn't something to dread because the soul's journey was eternal, like a cycle of life, death, and rebirth. Which honestly feels like the comforting version of our glitch in the Matrix stories. So while today we call it quantum immortality, thousands of years ago, people were like, yeah, your consciousness just keeps vibing. Don't stress about it. That was my thousands of year ago accent. But anyway, back to Reddit. This one is from Material Wolf 8005. I don't know why I almost had a hard time saying that. And it's titled, I died and woke up in a parallel universe. I have sleep apnea, and sometimes if I sleep facing up, I will wake up gasping for air and choking on my saliva. It took me like 10 tries to read that because I kept chuckling. I was so tired I slept facing up. I remember waking up freaked out and gasping for air. As I looked to the ceiling, my vision started going black from all the angles into a single point. Think of how an old TV turns off. After that, I was staring at myself through a mirror I had facing my bed. I remember thinking, oh no, I'm dead, as I looked at myself laying down. Then I saw myself moving as if I was waking up. I woke up, but the craziest part is that as soon as I woke up, I saw myself in the mirror staring at me, but standing up, not laying down. Now, this world feels off. I was anxious and depressed, and all of a sudden, I'm fine. I feel like I died in a parallel universe and woke up in this one. It's so weird I can't explain it, but I feel different. That's wild. This one's a pretty recent one. It was posted 2 months ago by user Looker here. By username Looky Here. Well, I was always pretty sure, but the nail in the coffin came this past Easter when I learned that the Queen Elizabeth II, was born on my birthday, April 21st, as well as Prince being killed, or dying if you believe that, also on April 21st. In my timeline, the Queen's birthday is April 20th, the same as Hitler. I also remember Prince being killed on April 20th, and the talk was that he was a sacrifice for the Queen, the purple one. After finding this out, I had to go looking to see what else changed. The Oklahoma City bombing moved from my memory of the 20th to the 19th. I remember the 20th because I was afraid the bombing would affect my birthday party the next day. I also recall thinking that April 20th was a cursed day, which it would end up being. Columbine happened on April 20th. Hitler's birthday, the 1992 riot. Again, a birthday anchor proves another change, the 1992 LA riots. I remember them taking place during my birthday. My party was the Saturday before my actual birthday, which fell on Monday. We were talking about the riots during the party, so April 18th was my party. The riots were actively going on at this time. Reginald Denny was pulled out of his rig and that got them really going. But before that, there were people walking down the streets and busting up stores, but pulling Reginald from his big rig on the corner of Florence and Normandy. No one who was old enough to remember will ever forget seeing that and remembering where it happened and that it escalated the riots. During my party on April 19th, I was told I was going somewhere as a surprise. Turned out to be the Phantom of the Opera. The tickets were a student discount and the show was on an off night. I know I saw the show the day after my actual birthday, so April 22nd was the show, a Wednesday. I remember asking my date if the curfew was still in effect and if the riots, which were winding down, will affect us going to see the show. And they didn't. There was an earthquake during the performance. This earthquake was strong enough to shake the entire auditorium, enough to have the cast say, "It's the curse of the Phantom," to keep people from freaking out that their seats were shaking. They played it off like it was part of the show. Archives indicate the only possible earthquake in the month was on the day after my birthday, April 22nd at 9:50 p.m. No doubt that this was the earthquake, which means I saw the play on that day, which was the day after my birthday. The riots happened almost a week later. Reginald Denny was pulled from his rig on April 29th. I had a minor freak out last month when I learned about Queen Elizabeth. I did not misremember. I don't know a single person who hasn't discovered which famous person shares your birthday and not known that a very major person shared it. Not associating Hitler's birthday with Queen Elizabeth's because I think they were both evil. Not willing to get into a debate or argument about it, but it's my own opinion. That actually would be a good podcast episode to talk about like the monarchy and stuff like that. And all the... I think I'm going to do it later. Okay. No way I wouldn't know that Queen Elizabeth and I shared a birthday. No way I would misremember the earthquake during the Phantom of the Opera and the memory of asking if it was okay because of the curfew and riots. No way I would misremember talking about the riots during my party. While opening presents, I forgot one of my gifts was a stuffed bear, and I made a joke about looking inside it for a gun. Someone at school told about her cousin who was taking part in the looting in LA, bringing her a stuffed bear from his looting, but he put a gun in the bear, which he also looted. I just want to say I am really confused about what this person's even talking about. Like, I don't even know. Because I feel like I'm missing a whole chunk of, like, whatever the fuck they were talking about. Another one from Maru the Red says, simultaneously split reality. When you see it happen, you know. I was in a room with my door shut, and I heard people in the hall, but the door never opened. They left, and several seconds later came back in and opened the door. They asked me where I was, and I said, sitting here. They claimed no one was in the room. I told them they never came into the room. They turned and left. They had entered the room and I wasn't in it. A second person experienced the same thing in another room separate from mine. And Vindictive Puppy commented, I was outside in the yard and went to open the door and it was locked, and it took a while before anyone came out. The guy who locked the door said he saw me walk back in the house. He swore up and down and sideways he saw me walk into the house and down the hall toward my room and thought he was just being a good guest by locking the door and turning out the lights. He looked really bugged out too, and I don't know if he'd have a reason to just lock me out. Not like we weren't pals or anything. It was weird. This one from Frosty Problem 1917 says, relived the same day, so I was basically in a time loop like in the movie The Groundhog Day. I know that people won't believe me, but I know it happened. I think parallel universes could explain what happened. Maybe I shifted into a parallel timeline that is one day back. I also used to write all numbers mirrored and had to learn to do it the right way. Leonardo da Vinci did this too. Maybe we're both from a different parallel universe, where the mirrored way is the correct way. Oh, I might just be really high because I am so fucking confused at like what have just read the past three comments. So, sorry guys. My brain is just not braining. Okay, I'm going to end with this one because I could go on forever. So this one is by Weirdo Immunity, and it says, people will think I'm totally batshit for this. When I was roughly 9 years old, my mother asked me specifically about the tags in my t-shirt and underwear. Like, she came in my room unprompted and just asked me to look at the tags and talked about the cornucopia and the Hanes t-shirts and shit. That's what that said. It was weird, and I thought she was drunk. Then, about a month later, she did the same exact thing, but this time she asked me to look at this tag as she picked my t-shirt up and showed me the tag, and it was just fruit. So I was sort of shocked and upset as I rummaged through my underwear drawer, desperately trying to find the tag from a few weeks ago, but they were all different. I had this one t-shirt she spilled coffee on that I was sure she couldn't have messed with. But when I found it, the tag was changed and had the same washer fading in the logo as the old one, minus the cornucopia. She seemed sickly delighted in how upset I was and had this big fat smile on her face and kept repeating it has always been this way. I was crying and ended up screaming. She grabbed my... What the heck? I'm not reading that part because that's a little rude. Okay, I'll read it. So it says that he was crying, or it might have been a girl, but I was crying and ended up screaming. She grabbed my neck and shook me violently and told me if I kept it up, people would think I was crazy and to shut up now. Maybe she was scared. Maybe that's why she did that. But prior to this experience, my dad had worked on secret projects for the government. Okay, so maybe she was scared. And she stopped under an enormous UFO on our way home one night while my father was out of town on business. After taekwondo practice that we had been seeing in the distance and made it clear that because I was screaming on the floor of her car to not stop, I had made a decision I couldn't take back when I was 7. Who knows if they were related? Enjoy calling me nuts. Well, I'm sorry, friend. I think you might be just a little nuts based off of how you just wrote that story that I just read. Because again, I'm a little confused. On that note, that's a wrap on today's dive into quantum immortality and near-death glitches that I just realized I may not have really talked about. From Reddit stories that made you question everything to Celtic myths about souls vibing in the Summerland, one thing is for sure, reality is a whole lot weirder than what we give it credit for. And hey, if you're hearing this right now, congrats. That means you survived in this timeline with me. Unless you didn't, and your consciousness just hopped over here. Either way, glad you made it. Next week, and I cannot wait for this, we are talking about the Grateful Dead, and I'm so excited because they've come up so often, like doing my research for these other topics, that I felt like I should just do a whole episode about it and all the wild conspiracy theories that surround them. From like CIA experiments to LSD-fueled acid tests to whether their concerts were actually giant social experiments. This one is going to be trippy, hopefully. So get ready because reality might be glitchy, but the music never stops. Sorry, that was so stupid. Before I go, it's time for the song of the week, and it couldn't fit this theme any better. It's called Dead and Gone by Dreamfone. It's dreamy and honestly the perfect song to play while you spiral about whether you're immortal or not. Go stream it everywhere, crank it up, and let it carry you into another reality. Stay curious, stay weird, and remember, be kind to someone for no reason, and go be amazing.
All right, let me do it again.
There's always something there, and I can't seem to scare it. The devil on my shoulder is always in my ear, and I don't wanna hear it. Quit your complaining, it's all overrated now. Nothing can save us, we're all gonna make it out. On and on, life rolls on, then we're all dead and gone. On and on, oh, life rolls on. Breathing underwater, I feel it sinking in when I try to quit. Always complaining, it's so overrated now. Oh, now nothing can save us, we're all gonna make it out. On and on, life rolls on, then we're all dead and gone. On and on, oh, life rolls on. Everybody's crazy, and it's all the same. Yeah, we're all insane. So quit your complaining, it's all